How do everybody? Got an interesting story here, quite a short one. The fact it's had to be reported on, and that people think that this is newsworthy, is what I find absolutely shocking. Because to me, this is just glaringly obvious information, and it's just on to do with the cost of net zero. And I'll read the headline for you so you get the basic gist of it. Anyway, net zero will be far more expensive than public thinks. Lords warn, as in the House of Lords. Former chief IMF economist says government needs to borrow more to fund transition. I've not read this article, but I think it's probably going to be along the lines of course, it's shockingly more expensive. The reason why we've used steam power to generate electricity is because it's the most cost effective and efficient manner of us generating electricity at this point in time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. Now, I know people might be saying, "Oh, well, what about wind power? What about solar power?" Well, the fact of the matter is you need to have a non-renewable source of power behind them for just in case they don't work. Let's say, like I'm recording this now, 10 o'clock at night, pitch black outside. There's no wind. How would we get power generated right now? You need to have a gas or a coal or a nuclear power plant or some sort of water turbine or dam powered turbine, with water going through it. So you need a turbine, powered by water or steam to operate when they can't work, which means you need to have the infrastructure there in place, which costs money, still needs to be maintained, still needs to be serviced, repairs still need to be done on it, still need the same amount of employees. And with some of these big power plants as well, you can't just shut them off and turn them back on again. They can take 24 hours longer to fire up. So half of the time, you've got to keep them running anyway. So you're still burning all the fuel to keep the turbines moving. So it's still costing you just as much. So you might as well get rid of the wind and the solar power and just have the actual turbines in place from the traditional power plants. It's absolute madness. The lies that I've been told with the so-called green energy revolution, unbelievable. And even with people don't understand, like in in order, like with battery cars at the moment. I mean, I've not even started the story. I'm going right off topic here. In order to produce, and this is just for the UK alone, to produce the infrastructure and the cars to produce them so that we could replace all the cars that we have now in the United Kingdom would take the entire world supply of copper. That's not including everything else that's inside those cars and the charging points. Just for Britain. Now try doing that for the rest of the world. We've already gone past what's called peak copper. We can't actually mine more copper than we currently are because all the world's largest copper reserves have already been exhausted. When we're extracting copper out of the ground, it's something in the region of about 2% per ton of copper compared to what we used to get to. So for I think it used to be something like for every ton there used to be something like about a kilo or 2 kilos of copper in a ton, which isn't a lot at all. And you're talking about 100 grams now per ton of rock extracted from the ground of actual copper. Is so depleted now to extract it. So we will never ever get back to being able to produce enough copper either. Anyway, I've gone right off topic there. I mean, that's even without talking about like the rare earth minerals as well, which are done through open cast mining in the middle of the African jungle, where they're using literal slave labor to extract that out of the ground, and it has huge amounts of toxic runoff as well. It's just the whole thing just stinks to high heaven. Unfortunately, too many idiots have been eating up all the lies about it because they want to feel like good people. Oh, I want to have an electric car because there's no exhaust fumes coming out the back. Well, you know what? You've still got to have the power generated somewhere else. It weighs more, so it destroys the tires at a massively higher rate. So you're putting rubber particulate in the air. The brakes have got to be applied a lot harder. So there's brake particulates all in the air as well. And then there's some poor little African kid, 12-year-old, who's having to dig cobalt out of the ground with his bare hands just so you can have your replacement batteries for your car. I hope you like it. Anyway, let's get on with this. Net zero will be far more expensive than the public has so far been led to believe. Top economists have warned the Lord's Economic Affair Committee. I said this the other day. The Tories clearly want to win the next election, so they are just pulling out all the stops. And stories like this aren't coming out for no reason. This has been approved, this idea, because they know that green energy is not popular with the general public, because people are already effed off with being charged through their nose for everything. Like a British Gas, in a year they've gone from like 75 million profit to 730 million. No, 790 million, I think it was. Huge profits. People are sick of it. Absolutely sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sure you're sick of it as well. So I think they're allowing these stories to come out. Otherwise, I don't think we'd be seeing this, because they are going to get absolutely trounced at the next election. They know it. So they're trying to butter people up. Transitioning to a low carbon economy is necessary. I don't believe that, but will be much more expensive than people imagine. Oliver Blanchard said. Now that's his opinion. I disagree, because plants and trees and things like that, they actually need carbon dioxide to breathe. We breathe oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide. Now, I know this is basic biology. I'm not a biologist, but trees, believe it or not, breathing carbon dioxide, and then they breathe out oxygen. It's almost like there's a cyclical thing going on here where we help each other out, isn't it? Wild. You know, who would have thought that at the time of like the dinosaurs, when there was the highest amount of carbon dioxide in the air, we also had the largest animals in existence. Not just the dinosaurs, but the trees and plants as well were absolutely phenomenally massive. You know, this is not, I'm not just making that up, that's an actual fact. We know this by looking at the fossil records. You know, it's almost like if we had more carbon dioxide in the air, we'd start getting bumper harvests on the farms, because plants would have more air to breathe for them, and they'd be able to grow larger, wouldn't they? It's almost like when you look at things like the Dutch farmers, where they grow the tulips indoors, or even near me in Lancashire, they've got loads of greenhouses. It's almost like they have these big pipes that go into the side of them, and they directly pump carbon dioxide into the greenhouse, because they know that it'll give them a larger harvest by doing that. Weird that, isn't it? Isn't it weird that our farmers could possibly do that, and that actually carbon dioxide would actually be very good for the environment, or at least for our food production, I should say. So the former chief economist in the International Monetary Fund, well, there we go, International Monetary Fund, he's part of the blob, said there was a substantial fiscal cost to achieve anything close to net zero. Mr. Blanchard, who is now a senior fellow at Peterson Institute for International Economics at Washington, D.C., said the exact cost for the transition was unknown. Well, of course it's unknown. They're economists. They don't know anything. I've said this before. These people are soothsayers. Economics is astrology for men. That's all it is. You might as well, like I said before, you might as well roll sheep's teeth and read them. You know, read the tea leaves or something. You know, do tarot, because you'll get just as accurate of an answer as what an economist can give you. Economists are never ever right. Like I think there was literally, I think, two out of all the economists ever that were all involved in Brexit. There was only two economists that I ever saw who got it right. One was Matt Goodwin, and the other one was Mark Blythe. They're the only economists that I'm aware of who predicted Brexit. Same with Donald Trump getting voted in, because they don't know what they're talking about. I don't believe one single economist predicted the 2008 financial crash. Not one. You know, and that includes all the big massive banks as well, and they knew exactly what was going on from the inside, and yet even they couldn't see it coming. So these people have got no idea what they're talking about. Absolutely. Maybe day-to-day running of things, you know, helping things tick over, yeah. But when it comes to actually predicting big things, they've not got a clue. However, he told the Lords Committee, the public does not believe or has not been made to understand that is going to be costly for them. It's going to be costly, and that message has to be sent out. It's not just going to be costly, it's going to bankrupt the country. That's what it's actually going to do. It's going to be prohibitively expensive to the point of where the country is going to collapse in on itself. It will become impossible for this, because the thing with running countries and economics, it's what's called micro and macroeconomics. Micro is like you're really, really small, so you counting your pennies in your hands like microeconomics. You know, you're coppering up, so to speak. Your macroeconomics is sort of like your larger scale budgeting and looking at your outgoings as a whole, so to speak. And that's what it is. And the trouble is you see this like with the NHS, where people will point to a problem with the NHS and they'll go, yeah, that's only 1% of the NHS's budget, or that's only 0.5% of the NHS budget. But what they forget is that all these things add up, and it's the accumulation of all these things together that end up destroying it. And it's the same with this. Yeah, green energy on its own won't destroy the country. Yeah, mass immigration on its own won't destroy the country. Yeah, housing illegal migrants in 5-star hotels on its own won't tank the country. Yeah, giving not Vladimir Putin, Ukraine £80 billion isn't going to bankrupt the country. But when you start adding all these things up, these micro costs become macro costs together, and the accumulation of them all is what's going to end up tanking the country. And it's not just over 1 year, it's when it starts adding up over multiple years. You know, you start looking, and after 10 years you've wasted an entire annual budget on just waste and crap. And this is what these people don't think about, is this level of long-term thinking. And yeah, you know what, we could HS2, if we didn't have illegal immigration, let's say for the last 5 years, we could have built an entire HS2. That's how much money was spent. That's how much money we've lost via illegal immigration. You know, it's crazy. You know, just that on its own. The cost of legal migrants, who are a net loss to the country. What was it? They said £36 billion. That's two aircraft carriers we could have bought with that for free. This is what people aren't thinking about. It's these cumulative costs that keep adding up. I'll crack back on this because it's only gone 10 minutes, this. It's only a short article, luckily, anyway, so... He pointed to France and Germany, where farmers were protesting the phasing out of diesel subsidies and other EU environmental regulations, an example of the political challenges inherent in net zero. Yeah, they're going absolutely mad about it in France and Germany. And we're already seeing a problem with this in America as well. I'll see if I can find the article for you, or the video of it. Where they're warning about things like Cheerios and various cereal brands made from wheat, because they're having to use imported wheat, but they're covered in chemicals that are carcinogenic, because they don't have control over the standards of how they're grown or what they're exposed to in them countries. So they're going to bankrupt our farmers. Our farmers are going to go belly up. Then we're going to be bringing in foreign produce from countries like Ukraine or China, where they don't have the same standards as us. And then we're going to start finding all these incredibly carcinogenic and toxic chemicals sprayed all over them. If you're looking, I mean, you can even see there's been a big scandal in Nigeria a few years ago where they were getting rice coming from China, but it's not really rice, it's plastic, but it behaves exactly like rice. You even cook it up and it looks like rice. You know, it starts off looking like the dry rice that you buy in a bag, and then you heat it up, cook it, and it goes white, fills up, goes fluffy, looks just like rice. You eat it. Trouble is, your body can't break it down and digest it, and you end up choking to death on the inside from it. Clogs all your insides up and kills you. Well, that's what we'll end up getting over here. Our country is going to end up killing itself because of these idiots in place like Parliament and the EU Parliament, all on a vanity project. Oh, aren't we good, great people? Look, we care about the world. We love the world. We love the world so much that we're going to kill all the people on it so that the world's perfect. That's the mindset of them. They're absolute idiots. Mr. Blanchard said, I think realistically we have to accept the fact that for a while it will have to be financed by debt. Namely, the primary deficit will have to be a bit larger as a result. I suspect that for the next few years, probably a 0.5% more than the absolute minimum needed. Yeah, I mean, this isn't looking at... It's easy for them to say that, but that's going to mean more taxes. I mean, Birmingham's looking at a 21% increase on their council tax. You know, on average, the entire country is looking at an extra £100 a year on the council tax because they're bankrupting us by destroying our society. Again, we've had 1.5 million people come into the country last year, 700,000 net. That doesn't include all the illegal migrants. All those people are having to get housed locally. They're all now having to use facilities that they haven't paid into. We've got all extra vehicles running on the road, more potholes happening. Potholes aren't getting filled, so it's causing more damage. But when you've got more potholes on the road, that creates even more potholes because there's more debris on the road, and that debris creates more holes. So you end up with an exponential increase of the number of potholes, which exponentially increases the cost of repairing all the potholes. You know, there's been no investment into things like bridge maintenance or repairs properly, or, you know, street lighting's all been getting replaced. At least that's something, but that's a cost that's had to go into it. You know, all these things are just piling up and piling up and piling up, and they're piling more and more people into the country who are straight away taken from the country because they are adults. They've not been born in the country and eased into services. You know, they might be coming over here and like have 2 or 3 kids straight away. Then, well, suddenly you need to find 2 or 3 school places for those kids. You know, but when you start adding to hundreds of thousands or even millions of people, it becomes really, really expensive really quick. And then they're wondering why we've got to have... Then people are going, well, why have we suddenly got to have council tax go up? And let's not forget we were in lockdown for 2 to 3 years, weren't we? The actual entire global economy shut down. But we're still feeling the consequences of that as well. Listen, I've jabbered on again. It's only supposed to be a short article, this. The Office for Budget Responsibility has previously put the cost of the UK reaching net zero by 2050 at £1.4 trillion spread over 3 decades. Well, I'm telling you now, that will not even come close to it. That will be such a huge underestimate to be laughed at by 2050. It's and not just the cost of the finances, but the cost of people's livelihoods as well. This is going to destroy people. It's going to destroy people's homes and businesses. And they're just going to tank the country. Well, this is you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. That's what this is. It has said the transition will be heralded around £1.1 trillion in savings, meaning the net cost will be around 300 billion. It's not going to give us any savings. It's going to blow up in the face because these people are. It's like when the Soviets decided to do some of the mega projects that they did, and they ended up basically turning like an entire country just into a desert because they redirected a river, and there was a large saltwater lake. I can't remember the name of it now, but Stanley wanted this massive cotton farming project going on. So cotton is very, very water intensive, so they redirected these rivers, but this saltwater lake ended up drying up. And then so you were just left with these salt plains, but then the wind just picked up and just carried the salt across all the farmland, destroyed all the farmland as well. So they lost everything. They lost the lake, the saltwater lake, and they lost all the cotton farmland because all the land became salted and was poisoned. They couldn't grow anything on it. Destroy. I think it was in Azerbaijan they did that. Absolutely destroy. And even now it's still an ecological absolute disaster. And this is the problem with these people. They have these great big ideas and they have no understanding of the consequences of what they're getting into. It's what's called unintended consequences. Idiots. These people are too. The trouble is they're smart enough to have big ideas, but they're not smart enough, as in to think beyond the idea of could there be consequences that I can't think of. They're not smart enough to understand that. It's what's called a midwit. And the IQ, I believe, of a midwit is 110 to about 125, possibly 130. So they are clever people, but they're not as clever as they think they are. Look, I'm going 17 minutes here, and I've still not got to the end of the article here. And what I'll do, you've got the main flavour of it. I'll put the link below if you want to read the rest of it. There's only like another 100 words or so after that. It's not much left to read, but you know. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. Give you something to think about. I have waffled on about a few different things there. I'll try and remember to put all different things in bottom for you if I can. If you enjoyed that, please like, subscribe. Definitely put a comment below. I love reading your comments, and I do always try to get back to them as quick as possible, although it may not be on the same day. Take care. Goodbye.